Hello and welcome to our how-to video series No ePro. Today I'd like to show you how to look up a purchase order and the activity associated with that purchase order. Specifically, we're going to be looking at a blanket type purchase order, a type of PO that you would set up for a professional technical contract where you're getting billed throughout the life of the contract or the PO, or a blanket PO set up for maybe a will call type situation. So let's go ahead and go through the lesson. And we're going to be looking at two different ways to look at the activity associated with it. We're going to be looking at activity summary, and we'll also be looking at document status. So let's go to, we want to look at a purchase order. So what we're looking for is something that's already have been created. So I'm going to go to main menu. I'm going to go to purchasing. I'm going to go to purchase orders, and I'm going to go to add update POs. And feel free to pause the video as you're watching so that you can follow along as we go through this. When you get to the purchase order screen, the system will default to add a new value tab, and it'll default to your business unit. Now that's if you want to create a new purchase order, but in this case all purchase orders are created through requisition, so it doesn't matter here. What we want to do is click find an existing value tab. Like anything, you can search for POs through various ways to look it up. You can look it up by supplier name, supplier ID, if you know the buyer, etc. In this case, we do know which one we're looking for, and I'm going to be looking up a PO that was created from our economic development department. And this is a PO that was created from a professional technical contract in this example. So I look up my PO, hit search, and here I come up with the purchase order screen. Some key things to just kind of look at and to know about the purchase order. Always want to be in a dispatch status and a valid status. This is where you want to be. If for any reason you needed to make any changes to the PO, you're going to click this little icon here. It's the change order button. Gives you some information about the supplier ID, the supplier, the amount of the PO. Notice there's an encumbrance balance. You will see an encumbrance balance if the funding string or accounting string you've used is a non-project costing set of accounting string. If you use just department ID and fund, you will see an encumbrance balance here. So what we're looking at is what is the activity associated with this PO. Two things I can look at. I can look at activity summary, and I can look at document status. First, we're going to look at activity summary. If I click on activity summary, it's going to open up a new window, and you're going to see some basic information here. You're going to see the PO amount, how much has been invoiced, and how much has been matched. Now, you always want to see that these two numbers equal, invoice and match. That means there's been no match exceptions. Everything's working the way it's supposed to. That's an ideal situation. Also, you want to ensure that this amount invoiced does not exceed this amount here of the PO. If this amount exceeds this amount, you will see a match exception in our system, and any vouchers over the $20,000 amount in this case will not pay. To kind of see in a big view of everything, I like to call this little button here the luggage tag. If I click on this here, it opens up the information, and we can kind of scroll across the screen. We can see the amount of the PO. Notice this section here, amount only. This is key when creating these blanket POs, that this button is checked. When this button is checked, it allows multiple invoices of various dollar amounts to be billed against this PO up to the amount of the PO. If I continue to scroll, I can see how much has been invoiced, what's left on the PO, and this button right here, if I click on it, will tell me what vouchers have been created against this purchase order. If I click this link here, it'll take me to some voucher inquiry where I can get some information about the voucher. The voucher number, who is paid to, what status it is. It's in match status, which is good. If I look at more details, in this case, I can look at the workflow and who approved it, or where it's pending. Pop that window here, and you can see there's some workflow, and it was approved. Click return. If I want to see a copy of the invoice for any reason, I can click on the action link here, and I have some choices. What I'm looking for is view attachments. It'll pull it up. This information here tells you who entered it, who entered the voucher, in this case the name here in accounts payable. Here's the copy of the invoice. If I click on this here, it will open up a new window. May ask you if it's okay, and here is a copy of the invoice. So this will help you, if you need to review to ensure that they actually did the services before you approve for payment. But here is a copy of the invoice. So I'm going to go back to where I was at on my. So that's one way to look up activity associated with the purchase order. The other way you can look it up is through document status. Going back to my main purchase order page here, I'm going to click on this document status link. This gives us a little bit more summarized view, but it kind of gives us the same information. Looks a little bit different. In this stage or this view, you can kind of see a timeline here of the purchase order. This will tell you here that there was one requisition that was created for this PO. You will see that here it is tied to a procurement contract, and then you will see here that there is one voucher associated with it and that there's been one payment. So document status is a really good view to kind of get a full picture of what is happening with this PO. If I click on the information here, it'll take me to down here, the voucher, and then I'm in the same, basically the same place I was earlier. If I click on the voucher number there, it's going to take me to the voucher inquiry screen as we saw. If I go to payments and click that, I will see the payment information. So I can click on this, opens up a new window, and now I can kind of see some additional information about when this bill was actually paid. In this case, you can see that it was paid on 9/11 of 2018. So if you ever get a phone call, what's the status of my bill? When did I get paid? This is a good place to look for that information there. So I'm back here at the document status page. Again, if I wanted to check what contract this comes from, I click on that and it brings up the information down here, and it tells me here's my ID. If I click on that, it's going to take me to just where the contract number that this PO was released from. As you see on this page here, it tells you how the contract was created. In this case, with this requisition number, this PO was created. So it gives a lot of good information. So as you can see, just by looking up a purchase order, there's a lot of information that you can see on it here. I'm going to go back to the purchase order page here. But really quickly, that's how you look up some information with the purchase order. We looked at two ways to view the information. We reviewed the purchase order by its number, and then we looked at activity using the activity summary information here and the document status. Both give you some information regarding vouchers that were created, payments that were created, and it really helps you manage the life of this purchase order and what's left over. I hope you found this video useful today. Again, please be on the lookout for future videos. Thank you very much.